Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and to all of yours across the region and the wider world. Welcome to Talking Points here on WESN, the content capital. My name is Keaton Shaw. Now, this morning, I'm going to start off with some good news. There is a story in the papers which, to me, is rather delightful and shows that there is still a lot of hope for the younger generations in SA. A 20-year-old man found money, thousands of dollars actually, and returned it to the owner. Now, I'll give you details of that story shortly, but in first instance, reading that, my reaction was absolutely, I was very much taken aback, because it's not often that you read that, and I must applaud the newspapers for actually highlighting such good news. It actually takes me to another aspect in relation to the youth. Yesterday afternoon to be precise, I was in Tunapuna. I had to do some errands. And in conducting my activities, many a times when I would pass school children on the streets, even little ones, and when I say little ones, they have to be infants, maybe standard one for the most part. Every single one of them would look at you and say good afternoon, good day. And I thought, that is splendid. I thought that is something to smile about. The mannerisms, the decorum, and I applaud that. So to all those students, to the younger generations who are doing those little bits, those little things, which puts a smile on everybody's faces, but also shows that there is a lot of hope within the younger generations. And those small little things that you can practice, not only do I applaud the parents or the wards, whoever may look after you or whoever taught you such, not only do I applaud them for instilling those values, but I applaud you for practicing it. And I really hope that I see more of that and experience more of that. So kudos to all those who practice just those little things. Anyway, folks, I've given you some good news. It's some news to smile about and to cheer about, but for the most part, this morning's show is not going to be something to smile about. Unfortunately, it is more about doom and gloom. Why? Not only are we seeing greater instances of domestic violence, in fact, there are 2 instances now, over the course of 2 days, we have lost 2 mothers, we have lost children, and more so, we're now reading about parents actually sexually assaulting. And when I say parents, I don't mean just fathers. We're hearing about mothers now against their children, and we will dive into that very shortly. But we will also have a little debate later on. Our protection orders, the gender-based violence unit, are we doing enough? Is it making sense what is being preached to us? Or what is being preached to us? Is it being implemented? At the end of the day, it's in one of these stories you're going to hear about an individual who contacted the police multiple times. And in the end, unfortunately, she lost her life. Alongside me this morning to have these conversations are my co-host, colleague, my good friend, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And I want to start off with the claim that the acting commissioner of police made recently, that there are 134 criminal gangs whose activities account for most of the crimes that citizens face on a daily basis. And I think at the end of the day, how true that is, that might be closer to the truth. That might be the reality. A lot of the robberies, a lot of the violence that might seem random and unconnected. All right, cool. A lot of the reprisals and the fighting, cool. But the domestic violence and killings, of which one case you have alluded to already that I do want to get into, is that because of gangs? I mean, we literally cannot use gangs as a blanket excuse. Well, gangs exist, so we have crime. Right now, we're seeing more than just gangs. And more importantly, first of all, what is being done about it, right? Except giving us buzzwords of, well, it's gang violence, and I have confidence that we could solve it. Every commissioner before you has had confidence that they could solve it. Every commissioner before you claimed to want to achieve great things at the end of the day. Name me one lower level gang lieutenant. I'm talking about the guy that controls the lowest level guy. Not even to say a full-fledged gang leader. Not even to say like one of his seconds. Just a local nobody that runs other nobodies. Who have we gotten of any sort of significance to say we're curtailing the gang problem? Generally what happens is the papers will report about people of interest until they end up murdered by another gang. And then all of a sudden the police will be like, yes, it's a known gang leader of this gang, and da-da-da-da. And they had all this information. Where's the actual investigation and prosecution into these gangs? Especially the leadership.
Well, my friend, let me add to the conversation here, and let me provide for you some statistics on the part of the Acting Commissioner of Police and the National Security Minister. And I quote from the Acting Commissioner of Police, according to this newspaper article, there are an estimated 134 gangs with segments in different parts of Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, there are 6 main gangs, and I tend not to mention the names because some of these gangs carry the names of some of our best and important religious faiths. End quote. I continue. Our analysis has shown that 60% of the murders across Trinidad and Tobago is in fact gang-related, and about 80% of our shootings and woundings are also gang-related. These gangs are now involved in illegal quarrying drugs, robbery, extortion, and land grabbing, human trafficking, and most recently they are involved in the sale of illegal guns. I will not use the term most recently, but that's according to the Acting Commissioner of Police. The Minister of National Security, Fitzgerald Hines, went on to present statistics as it relates to gang members across Trinidad and Tobago. And I quote on the part of the National Security Minister, the estimated number of gang members for each year, 1,084 in 2015, 2,038 in 2016, 2,484 in 2017, 2,484 thereabout for 2018, and in 2019, 2020, 1,056 in 2021, and 1,462, and the same for 2022, end quote. Now, to me, it's rather amazing that the Minister of National Security could actually give us these figures. My question is exactly how did we come about these figures? Because if you're making the claims that, according to your analysis, there are an estimated 134 gangs, but then you're also able to give a rough estimate about how many gang members there are in Trinidad and Tobago, is it not, again, I go back, is it not illegal to be a gang member or affiliated with a gang? So if we know this information, what evidence are we really waiting on in order to find these gang members, arrest them, and prosecute them? We can have that debate about the judicial system again, let's not get into that. But basic policing, how difficult is it to do if you have this information and these statistics? Because I'm trying to figure out what's the next step. Is it that you're going to talk us to death, literally, about another crime plan? Are we going to continue to hear the same words over and over again about, we are rather concerned, but I'm confident? I'm smiling because we have the resolve and the resilience? Exactly what is it going to be? While you may have security, not everybody in Trinidad and Tobago is privy to that. So is it that we are just awaiting every day to see what's going to happen? We're just going to be talked to death with another crime plan. I'm assuming that's going to take place. I have no idea what direction we're heading in.
So here's another thing now. There's a report, and I don't know who worded it this way. If it was the media or if it was the police that released the information. But it says that the Northern Division accounts for the bulk of murders. Except when you look at the breakdown, the Northern Division does not account for the bulk of murders. They just have more murders than other divisions. Central Division is 32, Northern Division is 40. But then the other divisions are around 30 to 20. So Northern Division isn't even 20% or isn't even 50%. It's less than 50% of our total murders as of this time, right? Isn't it even less than 25%? I think, if we're close to 200 for the year.
We're about 200 for the year. We'll probably pass that, actually.
So for a majority, you have to be over 51%, not 40 out of 200 or so. And then also, with regards to the breakdown provided of Northern Division murders, gang activity is 38%. For murders, other murders are unclassified, domestic, robbery-related, drug-related, but they have a separate classification for gang activity. So if the police force is saying 38%, that also is not a majority. And maybe I have it wrong, but if the usage of terms and statistical analysis is beyond potentially certain senior posts or people who are in charge for this breakdown, people in charge of intelligence in the TTPS, if you can't literally understand what majority means, I mean, it's in our elections. Everybody understands majority in an election is 51%, right? You need to have one over the rest.
Here's the greatest thing, in my opinion. The Acting Commissioner of Police goes on to say that gang members are now involved. I love the jargon he's using, are now involved in illegal quarrying, drugs, robbery, extortion, and land grabbing. Now involved.
I would just like to point out, I highly doubt, with regards to something like quarrying, gang members are now involved.
Sean, I highly doubt with drugs, robbery, extortion, and land grabbing.
Yeah.
Human trafficking, and here is, to me, the best part.
Yes, I think it's safe to assume that drugs, money laundering, human trafficking, those things are traditionally, historically, gang activity. I think that's a fair assumption.
Also, you have to look at it from a white-collar perspective, because there could be those in authority or those in high office who also practice such. It could be, possibly. And then, to me, this is the best part of the quote. And most recently, they are involved in the sale of illegal guns. Really? It's not that I'm acting facetious, but the mere fact that you're making these comments, I'm shocked and surprised that in your position, this is what you're stating. But here's the thing. Every day, the Minister of National Security and the Acting Commissioner of Police, we'd be actually very lucky if we heard from the Minister of National Security every day. But almost on a daily basis, if you look at the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service social media pages, if you listen to the Acting Commissioner of Police or the Minister of National Security, they're always preaching to us that they know who the gang members are. They're always preaching to us that they know what the gang members are involved in. Many a times we've heard that this individual who was murdered, shot and killed was known to the police, was a known gang member, known to be affiliated with gangs. And yet, somehow or the other, every single day, the TTPS is failing the citizens because they're not acting upon their own information that they feed to us. They are failing us and failing themselves. They are failing that badge that they wear by not acting upon that information.
I think the real issue is probably not, and this might be sad, it's probably not even that they're failing to act in the sense of they choose not to. I do wonder to what extent they don't know how to. When is the last time we have heard of any sort of serial investigative case where the TTPS builds a case against organized crime? Think about it. We see it all in the movies, and then, every now and then you will hear either a documentary or a news report reminding you about how in whichever country they went after organized crime, they did stings, they had undercovers, they had surveillance, they took a few years, they built up cases. We don't have that here. Dare I ask if any of the campaign money comes from sources that are from less reputable sources? But my point is, we don't have that here. The last thing we had for a plan was the state of emergency from the People's Partnership, of which we don't even necessarily know exactly why they called it. Nothing necessarily came out of it, and it inconvenienced the entire country for what, 3 months?
Yeah, but
But that, at least they presented us with something. Think about it. What is the last plan we got within the last 7 years?
if we're celebrating a failed state of emergency,
I'm not celebrating it. I'm just saying we can't even have something at that level of failure. The failure is lower than that.
well, I mean, criminals were living nicely. As far as I'm aware, some criminals actually were housed in a luxurious hotel. Many a times, criminals were just released on the basis of no evidence, and then they sued the state.
Hey, it is alleged that one even got invited to the president's house. Oh wait, maybe wasn't formally invited.
Or maybe it wasn't even alleged. You know? But anyway, folks, moving on now, before we take our first break here on the program, continuing our analysis into the disappearance and subsequent death of 2-year-old Kimani Francis, may he rest in peace. It is to report to you the nation is anxiously awaiting the results of the autopsy. You know, putting that piece of information officially and stamping it will give us a better understanding of exactly what happened and hopefully help the police as they conduct their investigations. But the deceased toddler was taken to the Forensic Science Center in St. James yesterday at around 11 a.m. However, it is now understood that there are a backlog of cases, and when I say backlog of cases, I mean there are bodies piling up at the Forensic Science Center in St. James, that the autopsy had to be delayed. And furthermore, subsequently, it was postponed until at least next week. So, to be honest with you, it's sad that in a nation that is, hold on, in a nation that, we're about 200 murders where we estimate, so probably cross that now, so far for the year of 2022, that this is the case. It's not easy in terms of conducting an autopsy. It takes hours. I'm very much well aware of that. But to me, not only does it delay again I suppose Kimani being laid to rest and the family and the nation getting answers, but more so, this also points to the extent of our criminal activity here in Trinidad and Tobago and our murderers.
The interesting thing is the autopsy for PC Gilks was around a week after he was shot, or at least the report was. Right, so to what extent was that fast-tracked, and then now that has a whole next set of questions.
Do recall that the Acting Commissioner of Police thanked the Forensic Science Center for expediting the process.
Right, so which means if that's expedition, then how much later is Kimani's autopsy going to be? That said, we do have to understand there are a whole host of other people. Now, I would think that the order should be determined based on necessity, both how long could it wait, this autopsy has been waiting for too long, as well as which investigation needs to move forward as quickly as possible. In the case of this young boy, I do think to some extent it needs to be sooner rather than later, if just for the fact to eliminate the possibility of there being any other unknown quantity that we don't know yet. So we want to eliminate that. So, okay, we could be sure this is how it is, this is what it is. Because we brought it up. We don't know for sure. We have one person's account, and her account is to some extent limited because she lost sight of the child in the end. So we don't know exactly what happened to the child in his unfortunate last moments. To some extent, we need to kind of find out to make sure there's nothing more to this story, because it's the end of a life. There are other cases where it is a bit more obvious that it's a murder and you're collecting evidence, I guess, for the investigation, but you don't necessarily need the autopsy to determine the chain of events or the cause of death.
My concern is that even though the body's there and they would be able to preserve the body through various means, to what extent is delaying the autopsy now going to affect the results or the possibility of getting a better understanding? So
I would hope, because generally speaking, we do have competent people in TNT. They just somehow don't end up in Parliament. But that's besides the point. I would think that they would understand this and act within a reasonable window in order to get the results. So I can only trust that happens. If the autopsy comes back inconclusive, unfortunately, that then opens up the process to a lot of scrutiny. Rightfully or wrongfully, it just is going to happen. However, with that said, that doesn't mean I'm advocating that the examiner cook the books in order to avoid that scenario. But you have a point. I don't know. I would like to think that something is working with a certain degree of proficiency. And in this case, we don't have a reason to question the capability of the individuals working there. Right now, the main thing is they're probably understaffed. That is not something new. And they're probably overworked in part because of the surge of murders and the types of murders that they're probably seeing and deaths.
Ladies and gentlemen, here on Talking Point, we will continue the conversations. Over the last week, we have focused on crime. There are a lot more things to focus on here in Trinidad and Tobago, such as Train 1, Train 2, Train 3, and apparently Train 4 as well. But more so, ladies and gentlemen, crime is plaguing society right now. It is dismantling us. And we must address it, because at the end of the day, if you don't hear from your Minister of National Security, and by the way, I'd just like to say with that in itself, you cannot fault the Commissioner for failing to communicate to the citizens. We may not agree with what he's saying, and we may not be happy or satisfied with what he's saying, but at least he's talking.
Right, but the point we're making is you're making claims using inaccurate language. So now I have to ask, is the whole, well, it's mostly gang activity, is that literally just an excuse? Is that a scapegoat? Is that to try to plaster the sore? Because it's not mostly gang activity. It's 38%. It's 2/5 gang activity, 3/5 other things.
No. Sir, my good friend. The acting commissioner of police has indicated that he is rather concerned about the surge in
about
murders.
Because he's now discovered that gangs sell drugs.
And apparently illegal weapons.
I mean, it's a bit facetious, but semantics matter when you're communicating, when you're trying to inspire confidence, when you're trying to imply. You're not giving us a plan, you're not showing us results. So at the very least, don't mess up the English that you're going to use when you're trying to communicate your smoke screens. Do we have time before we take the break? Because they have the story with regards to the poor young lady that was murdered.
So
are you saving that for after the break?
I'm going to pause now because there are two instances actually 3 stories associated with domestic violence and gender-based violence. When we resume our program after this, we will get into that. So stay tuned to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital.
North Coast Jazz 2022. Day 2, Event 2. The big day is Family Saturday. And the biggest stars are performing on festival grounds. Michelle Sylvester, Ruel Lynch, Patrick Gordon, Adam Hagley featuring Tony Paul, Leandra Head, Johan Chuckery, Sharon Phillips, Freetown Collective, powered by festival band Dean Williams and Company. Each master talent will perform a song from Lord Nelson's wide catalogue. Saturday, Family, May 28th. Together again. Festival grounds, Blanchisseurs. Family, a tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2022. 3 days, 3 events, 3 experiences. Born here, played here.
Get your tickets now at Crosby St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Sangre Grande, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Digicel Trend City and C3 Malls, and Digicel Head Office, 11C Maraval, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
Tune in to WESN Content Capital from May 5th to 13th as we bring you exclusive coverage of the TTCB's T20 Festival. 8 teams will face off at the Cricket Centre in Balmain, Couva. Follow us for the live action only on WESN Content Capital, your home for cricket.
As a mother, convenience is a gift. With so many things to juggle every day, I need ease when doing business. Thanks to eyewearsolutions.com, I can order my contact lenses, solutions, and even sunglasses all on the go. Registering and ordering are easy. Plus, I get delivery right at my door or collect in-store if I choose. eyewearsolutions.com. Now that's convenience in a click. Visit eyewearsolutions.com today and enjoy 15% off your first purchase of contact lenses.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and we resume our conversation this morning with highlighting a case of a couple that were charged for attempting to have sex with their teenage daughter. I'll review the details now. A woman and a man who allegedly attempted to have sex with their 13-year-old daughter have been charged. They appeared before the Chaguanas Magistrate Court on Monday, charged with a series of sexual offences and have been ordered to stay away from the child. The mother was granted $350,000 in bail with a surety to cover the charges of cruelty to a child and inciting a child to engage in sex. The stepfather was also granted $350,000 to cover the charge of sexual touching of a child. A release from the TTPS on Tuesday stated they were instructed to report to their local police station 2 days a week, have no communication with the girl directly or indirectly or through a third party, not to visit her at school or at her present address, and to remain 800 meters away from her at all times. The couple were arrested on April 6th by officers of the Rio Claro Task Force and later charged with offences by the Central Division Child Protection Unit. According to a police report, listen to this. According to a police report, at 4:15 p.m. on April 6th, a girl was at home when a woman and a man whom she knew allegedly attempted to engage in sexual activities with her. The girl told Child Protection Unit detectives that she refused and was subsequently assaulted. An investigation was launched and the couple were later charged. Sean, yet again, we are hearing another story of sexual assault. Because if you recall, yesterday, I highlighted the fact that a 46-year-old man was arrested for having intercourse with his daughter. 5 counts. 5 counts on sexual charges. Now we're reporting to you about a mother inciting sexual activities between her daughter and the daughter's stepfather. What is going on in Trinidad? What is really happening? This is incest.
So first I would like to correct myself. Acting Commissioner Jacobs did not say that the majority of murders was because of gangs, but crime activities that citizens face is because of gangs. That said, I will still, at least to some extent, reiterate the fact that I think that's being a little bit, you're trying to cover up things. And this is a good example. Domestic violence, domestic sexual assault. I can't even begin to understand what the motivation is here for both parents, because to have a criminal conspiracy or collusion or more than one member conduct a heinous crime, that is not something that you see every day. So usually it's one parent assaulting the child or what have you. To say that both, and I'll be honest, I am at a loss for words on this one. I am at a loss for words. I could understand a murder for gang violence, fighting on turf and drug deals for money. And so I get it, greed, I get that. I could understand that. I do not understand. You're married to a woman and you and her want to engage in activities with her, she's not even like 16, 17, almost adult. 13, right? Barely a teenager, barely an adolescent. She's basically a child. And I don't understand how both of them will just think, this is a good idea, let's do this. Why?
But forgive me, I want to switch a little bit now, because this is an issue of domestic violence within the household and gender-based violence. But let me point out the obvious, that this is incest. And I'm just wondering now, Sean, if incest is a problem that we have here in Trinidad and Tobago that is not often reported, because bear in mind, this child, this 13-year-old girl, was brave enough to go and report her mother to the police, her stepfather as well.
Yeah.
She was brave enough to do that. But are there cases of incest across Trinidad and Tobago which are not reported?
Sorry, I wasn't following. What happened? What's the situation with the father?
It's a stepfather.
No, but her biological father, is he alive?
No details were given about that.
So yes, because we remarked yesterday, to report your family when both of the parents in the household, assuming that the father might not be, hopefully the father is. That is no small feat for a child of 13. Most victims of domestic abuse, whether it's physical or emotional, mental abuse, to my understanding, and I am not a psychologist or a traumatologist or a counselor, so take this with a grain of salt. This is limited understanding here. But generally speaking, what can happen is the victims don't even know that they're being victimized because they trust in the parental figure, the authority of that figure, that this is normal, this is to some extent fine, and maybe the issue is not with what the parent is or how the parent is treating them, but rather something else, and they start with themselves. So the fact that this child was aware enough to go and report it, we as a country are lucky.
In that sense, for this one particular case.
We as a country are lucky in this one particular case because she was able to help herself. In most cases, they don't know to help themselves because they're children, because they're too young to even understand what is right from wrong in this situation. They're my parents. What do we force feed our kids? Respect your parents, respect your parents. I understand why that's important to respect your parents. But obviously there are extreme cases where you do not give that automatic consideration so easily. And incest in this country, unfortunately, I don't know to what extent we have it. Could be a little bit, could be a lot. I really don't know. Right? It has accusations in different ways about incest has been thrown around in this country, and they have been silently just not talked about even after it's thrown out there. So to what extent do we just not want to talk about it? We don't want to acknowledge it. We just hope it goes away. We just close our eyes, it doesn't exist. The problem is, to what extent is it adding to the trauma of the children? As we spoke to Hannah Benjamin earlier in the week.
Well, the first thing we thought of, Sean, is what is going to happen with this little girl? Are they going to put her in a home?
Right. So we just spoke about how bad those situations are. The minister is basically having to deal with the fact that the homes are not qualifying, but if they close down the homes, they don't know where to put the children. This is what Hannah is saying. Hannah is like, no. If they don't qualify, we need to shut it down and figure it out. Government is not necessarily willing to do that. That is just to say how bad the situation is. So what is going to happen with this girl? But what about other children who are potentially going to be abused, lash out? Some of them will have to stay in that horrific situation until they become adults and maybe become damaged adults who repeat the same crime, because victims of abuse tend to abuse others. But then also now the ones who are removed from that horrific situation go in a different bad situation, abused in a different way, abuse people when they grow up in a different way. There's very little means to rectify the situation, it seems, on the surface. What are the way out for these types of victims? And then on top of that, because I do have to say, abusers tend to use violence to control their household. So what happens now when we fail to act, but the authorities fail to act after the victim speaks out, and the victim is then put back in the home? In this case, thankfully, police handle it well, and I like to commend the officers. But what would have happened if the investigation came up to nothing and the child was put back into that house?
Well, oftentimes here in Trinidad and Tobago, we hear about reports being made to the police and nothing being done about it. And in one instance, we are now raising the issue of yesterday. You wanted to make one point before we continue?
No, this is the point. Right. This is why I wanted to connect these two stories.
Ellen Trishana Mohammed was hacked to death yesterday, with her killer almost severing her neck in the process. After which a Guayagari man walked out onto the road with a bloodied cutlass, flagged down a passing police patrol vehicle and surrendered. So he actually admitted to committing the crime. When officers checked the scene, they found 25-year-old Mohammed lying dead in front of the doorway near her unfurnished home, which overlooked the scene. Guayagari police said the murder occurred around 10:50 a.m. Her brother Isaiah indicated that she was with this man who is 40 years old. The man who admitted to the police that he committed this act for about 3 months, but became fearful for her life soon after when he became violent and physically was assaulting her. Apparently, according to the brother, he threatened to kill her and attack the entire family. Now, the brother indicated that they made several reports to the police. Her father also stated that they made 6 reports at a police station and they never came. In fact, listen to this quote on the part of the father. And I quote, "We made 6 reports in the station. They never come. Today, they put caution tape and come here with 15 police jeeps to serve and protect after the fact."
So I'd just like to point out, the International Women's Resource Network said between 2019 to the present, over 25 women have been killed after applying for a protection order. That basically means this is not an isolated incident. This is not a one-off. This is not a oops. This is not a my bad, we'll do better next time. This is also, again, it goes back to why is the acting commissioner so hopeful when we literally have no indication that anything is being done to improve the situation across any front? This is the interesting part. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just because his PR team is not good enough. But we're not even hearing about the interdiction of marijuana or guns as much as we used to last year.
The TTPS has been doing a media campaign. They've been going on various networks across Trinidad and Tobago. No, I'm only hoping, because I think most recently a media ambassador, I don't know what a media ambassador is, but apparently the media ambassador of the TTPS indicated he was encouraging citizens to make reports, even if it involves police officers victimizing them. He says it's absolutely confidential. You have to give your name and your address, by the way, but it's absolutely confidential, and at the end of the day, it will be dealt with. The issue I'm taking up here is I would love the TTPS to respond to what the family is saying, what the brother is saying, what the father is saying, that they made at least 6 reports. Because clearly, ladies and gentlemen, protection orders do not work.
I mean, why are we asking for people to be held accountable at their job when their job is to deal, is so important?
My thing is that if a report is made, right, multiple times, one time a police officer should show up and investigate.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But if a report is made multiple times, is there any sort of registry, public registry, in which anybody could have access to find out about these individuals?
Let's be very clear. These cases are difficult to investigate and prosecute. I understand that. But you still have to make the attempt before you say you did everything you could.
My concern is that if this individual did not admit it to the police, nor was the individual ever found or prosecuted, if he entered another relationship and the same thing happened, the thing is that the public needs to be warned about these things beforehand. So should there be... Protection orders is a piece of paper that apparently it really does not work. So I'd love to hear from the gender-based violence unit as well. But on top of that, should there be a public registry, a public list which we have access to warn individuals? Because if you got involved with this gentleman for 3 months, it's claimed that they were involved for 3 months, and he became violent and you became fearful for your life, and it seems as though that you couldn't end the relationship for whatever reason or for whatever circumstances. Maybe she did, and maybe the gentleman just kept showing up. At the end of it all, this mother died, and she was murdered. She was hacked in front of her 2 daughters.
Hacked?
In front of her 2 daughters. A mother is dead. Another mother is dead. And 3 more children actually. The 3rd child was not home at the time. 3 more children are now without a mother. This is the state we're in Trinidad and Tobago.
So, remember you asked me, what does that mean? It's not just limited to politicians. It extends to all aspects of our country and how it's run. Conspiracy of laziness against the people. We're not going to go out because we don't see the need to deal with your complaint. It's not important. Why? What is the criteria that evaluated the 6 reports and led to an inaction?
Here's what. The family needs to make all 6 reports known. Exactly which police station did you make these reports to? Who was the police officers or police officer that took your statements, that took your report? Which was the senior police officer in the station that signed off on that report? And make your receipts public. And then let the TTPS answer.
So here's the sad reality of our country. What should happen is negligence should then be followed up by lawsuits, right? You didn't do your job. We're suing you because look at what happened. What will happen is the state will, instead of defending the lawsuits in a normal fashion or acting in good faith and admitting culpability and paying damages, they will look at people who do that and try to retaliate against them.
Yes, but...
Including the lawyers.
But...
And lawyers want to get government money.
Lawsuits do not bring back lives.
I know, but think about it. If every case like this sued the government and took $1 million out of the treasury, at some point they might actually have an incentive to do something.
If you ever get that money or if your case ever goes through. Here's another angle. This man actually admitted to the crime. Murder. That's an offense. of which you will be
not
given
in a gang.
Automatically the death penalty. He's admitted it. Does this mean that the case could be expedited? If he's admitted it, and he has all the evaluations and whatnot, is the case then expedited?
Honestly,
and does he see the hangman?
In this case, it really matters little to me if he's given life or if he gets the hangman. Because the prosecution of this case, he gave himself up to the police. The prosecution of this case is going to do nothing to act as a deterrent for future murders. It's not. Where we needed the criminal justice system to act is when the family claimed they were afraid of this man for the life of their daughter. That's when we needed the criminal justice system to act. Now it's too late. Now it's clean up, right? This is no different. Arresting him, prosecuting him, sending him to prison, and or executing him is no different than cleaning up the crime scene. This is not helping society anymore because he gave himself up. He did that part of the job for you.
The thing is that there is a legal way for things to be done, and you will have to follow it. There's that case of Pratt and Morgan. I think it's, is it 5 years in which you are on death row? There's so many appeals. These appeals take so many times. One of the arguments as to why Trinidad and Tobago never signed for the CCJ, because we still go into the Privy Council, and I think the CCJ was not in favor of the death penalty. We have all those arguments and whatnot, but the death penalty is still part of Trinidad and Tobago's law. And at the end of the day, if he's admitted to this, does this mean that he will see the hangman? But I want to move on to the other story. The Solio wanted for questioning in connection with the murders of 12-year-old Levi Lewis and his mother, Abiola Kujo, has surrendered to the police. He was accompanied by his attorneys, Kiran Pandey and Soraya Dionarain. The 35-year-old man surrendered to the police at 2:32 p.m. yesterday. He was informed of his rights and privileges by investigating officer Inspector Maharaj, who took preliminary information from him. He was sent to the San Fernando General Hospital for a medical examination, and once investigations are completed, a file will be sent to the DPP by senior officers. This 12-year-old boy, sorry, forgive me. This 12-year-old boy was defending his mother. It is believed that this 35-year-old man was his father, allegedly. This 35-year-old man allegedly killed his own son, 12-year-old son. This boy saw wrong being committed, saw his mother being chopped, and tried to intervene, and was chopped several times. Ran to his grandfather's home down the street, told his grandfather what happened, then collapsed and died in front of his grandfather. A 12-year-old boy is dead. 35-year-old mother is also dead. And Sean, do you know that he was awaiting his SE results?
Yeah. Ran to his grandfather before he died. He used the last ounce of life to tell his grandfather what happened to his mother.
And we may not have never known.
How is it that we have a whole police force and a 12-year-old boy does more for a victim of domestic violence than the majority of an entire police force? I'm not going to say all. We have to always remember that. As much as we could criticize the police on this show, we have been criticizing the police. Not saying all. It's not all rotten to the core. It's being propped up by maybe quite a lot of good officers that are silently plugging away with whatever they can do with what they have. And I have met a few good officers. I have. But in this case, think about it. In these situations, this 12-year-old boy has done more for the victims of a domestic violence murder than the majority of the TTPS has done for victims of domestic violence murders.
Ladies and gentlemen, forgive Sean and I, because I'll be very honest with you. It's very hard. I mean, I can imagine how difficult it is for you to listen to these stories, read these stories, and hear these stories every day. It's hard when we have to report it, and it's hard when we have to examine it, get more information, and follow up on these stories. Before the death, the mother made a post on April 25th to her social media saying that she was being abused in so many ways. She said she had been in a relationship for 9 years and she was beaten for 8 of them. And I quote from the post, "Saturday, he broke my hand, kicked me in my belly and dragged me out of the house with my 3-year-old. Now we live in house to house and police saying stay away from the home." She asked for advice because relatives have indicated that she got a restraining order against the male relative.
So, we are so inept that we cannot do enough of an investigation with accusations of violence, and I would expect obvious physical injuries on the victim. We cannot detain this man.
Well, sure.
All of those people on remand, right? Not proven guilty. I get it. We can't detain this individual because he is a clear and present current threat to someone's well-being.
Sean, just to inform you so that you understand, homicide officers are now investigating. So they are investigating. Homicide officers.
Yes.
Homicide officers.
Exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude for News on the Hour, as we're getting to that time, I often come and I preach to you, and I often say we have to be our brother's keeper and unity, and this entire week we've covered crime. You're probably tired and fed up. Some of you may have even switched off your television because it's just so hard to swallow and so depressing. But I really don't know what more to say. I don't know. I'm lost. As a journalist, as a host, as a presenter, I am absolutely lost. I don't know what more to say. I don't know what more I could report, because at the end of it all, I don't want to keep hearing condolences sent to the family on the part of our leaders, the Prime Minister, the opposition leader, the Acting Commissioner of Police. And one of the Acting Commissioner of Police is going to go to any of these funerals and say, "I'm smiling behind my mask because we could protect the nation." 2 mothers are dead. One was hacked to death in front of her children. One son awaiting his essay results was killed, allegedly by his own father, while trying to protect his mother. And 2 parents, a stepfather and a biological mother, were arrested and charged for inciting sexual intercourse with a daughter. Ladies and gentlemen, WSN breaks the news on the hour. When we return, we'll open up the phone lines this morning. Stay tuned.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, We are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
North Coast Jazz 2022. After Family Saturday, the sky ignites with Blue Sunday, where Juve meets Pan meets Soca. Juve meets Pan meets Soca. A Juve experience featuring Hadco's Phase 2 Pan Groove, Mixmaster DJs, and powerful soca. Witness the expression of a new-found freedom with paint and vibes. Dance along to the music of our national instrument. Blue Sunday. Blue Sunday. A colorful experience, a tradition you won't want to miss.
Looking for somebody to jam with me and have some fun. Juve.
Sunday, May 29th, Festival Grounds, Blanchisseuse. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2022. 3 days, 3 events, 3 experiences. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Extra Foods Sagre Grande, Digicel, Trin City and Gulf City Malls, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
Burning questions, urgent topics, welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Don't keep yourself handcuffed. We continue to receive calls from members of the viewing public whose cable provider is Flow and cannot receive WESN. We advise that you unfortunately reside on the original Flow platform. If you wish to receive WESN's high-quality programming, you must contact Flow to be upgraded to the new Flow Evo platform. Call Flow now and demand your upgrade.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to Talking Point. We will now open up the phone lines, but let me respectfully inform callers that we are limiting you to a minute and not more. Yeah, I say if you go 30 seconds overboard, we will be okay with that, but not more than that because we need to give other callers the opportunity. So I will have to cut the call, and I'm letting you know now respectfully that if I have to cut the call and you are cut from air, please do not get upset. We would like to give everybody an opportunity. Okay? 623-9376, 622-9338. The number's on your screen. Good morning, caller from Tobago. Hello, good morning.
Keaton. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, sir.
All right, Keaton, I could actually hear the tears falling from your voice, the emotion on these matters that are happening in our space at this time. I want to be brief. I raised enough hell this morning on Andy's show. The street gangs are fueled by cartels.
Mm-hmm.
That is where they're getting the drugs to sell, the illegal guns that they're selling, that's where they're coming from. The little black boy in the Bitan, the little Indian boy in his community, are not the ones that are bringing these guns and drugs into the country. Right? These are coming in via cartel. It is known. I've seen it in print that there are two major cartels operating in the Trinidad space. That is the Syrian cartel and the Lebanese cartel. And it is known and printed that they contribute approximately 20% to the GDP of the country. In other words, money is laundered into our GDP to the tune of about 20%. That's the amount of money that they're making. And the street gangs are simply the tools they use. These businessmen, because that's what they are, they see themselves as businessmen. This is where your organized crime is. Street gangs are not organized crime. They're disorganized. And the organized crimes operate as corporations. They have presidents, they have bylaws, they have everything. So that's where if we focus the attention on suppressing the cartels, then you will see a reduction in the street gangs operation.
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much, caller. And very good point. We will examine that off air, Sean and I. But thank you very much also for making your point. You were absolutely direct and very lethal, and you were within time. So thank you very much. We have a call on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning.
Hi guys, thanks. Good morning.
Good morning.
When you want to get Minister Young on the show, could you ask him to ask Fitzgerald Hines, to ask Commissioner Jacobs, if he's still smiling after Krishna Mohammed's death? Was she chopped?
Yeah.
And what's he doing about all the police in the police stations, the ones that don't come? Don't bother to ask Hines because he's not responsible. And ask the local government, Lairawi, about the request from the International Women's Resource Network in July 2018 to amend the Domestic Violence Act. Ask Ayanna Webster, Roy and Donna Cox if they could provide funding and a place for the women to run to with their children, and Robinson Regis to help, and Colm to give them some of the $2 billion that he's going to save from the subsidy because they need money, police protection, and a place to run. And ask Nyan what they're doing in schools to educate children. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you
very much, caller.
I will just like that. I know where that money going. That money going in an airport that we don't need. That's where that money going.
You assume it's going in an airport we don't need.
Yes,
you assume that's where it's
that
going.
airport gonna get cost overruns.
It could be put up at a set of apartments, maybe on Picton Street.
No. Cost overruns. The money directly goes in liquid cash into our accounts.
We have a call on the line with us from Pitty Valley. Good morning, caller.
Morning, blessed morning, gentlemen.
Morning, sir.
Excellent topic again. Wow, I just had to come to you and say wow to this beautiful country. It is my thinking that things will have to get worse before it get better. I'm not a prophet of doom, but that's the unfortunate situation. You can't fix a spiritual problem with a carnal solution. Trinidad is a spiritual decay. Most of the problems are spiritual. Quickly, domestic violence is a very sensitive situation, and you have to deal with it differently. You can't rely on police alone, TPS, to address the question of domestic violence. You must have domestic and violence intervention officer. That person must report, have a relationship with the station, find out how much reports were submitted or recorded, what was done. If the officer in conjunction with the police have to go and visit the home, the gentleman who has served restraining order, there must be a program, a counseling session for them, because we know what's going on. They are not complying with restraining order anymore. So it has to be a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
The church in the community, the schools, that 12-year-old little boy who's going to school, I am sure that if you do a lecture in the school, that little boy would have told you what was going on at home. It's all reactive and not proactive.
Very much so.
And we need to address that in a serious way.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
Yes.
He was absolutely right in pointing out, yes, it is reactive.
But not just that. Also realize that other institutions have a part to play. It might be less, it might be a smaller part, but when the margins are so thin, it might still be critical.
We have a call on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller. Good morning, sir. Good to hear from you.
You all need to
to try and get a report. You talked about incest in communities.
Mhm.
Several years ago, there was a report done by a department in TTPS.
Mhm.
I can't remember the officer's name. Margaret was her first name, but she's retired now. She was an assistant commissioner. And they found that in certain communities, incest was that bad during that investigation that there was a particular area between, on that stretch between Toko and Matlot there.
Mhm.
There was a particular area that it was so bad that they could not lock anybody up when they did the investigation because they would have damaged the whole area because it was so much parents, children, cousins. It was that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And you all, and that has not changed in the last 10 years in Trinidad and Tobago. I remember that report.
Was it by Margaret Sampson Brown?
That's right. That's Margaret Sampson Brown.
Yeah.
That is tell you how bad it was, and it has gotten worse in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is communities with what you're seeing now with violence in the communities against women. The communities themselves are decaying. There is no more community. Nobody's looking out for anybody in the community.
Mhm.
Because if it is people who are looking out for people, these fellas would have been disciplined within the community by community members.
No, that is a fair point, and I'll off air I'll give you an example. Off air I'll give you an example. Thank you very much, caller. 623-9376, 622-933. Thank you, caller from San Fernando. One example that goes in line with what the caller was just mentioning in relation to the community not playing their role. I was speaking to an individual yesterday who informed me that outside of their home, right, there is a supermarket, and two women. Well, this didn't even involve a man. This was two men were fighting each other physically and cursing at each other, shouting, cursing, fighting each other. The owner of the supermarket, who I understand is a former police officer, as well as all the other individuals in the surrounding, were laughing. Were standing there watching, doing nothing. Some of them were laughing, some of them were videotaping. These two women are going, it's a serious fight. Cursing at each other, shouting, and the owner of the supermarket, who is allegedly an ex-police officer, is just standing there doing nothing, just laughing, watching, and whatnot. So I don't know if it's a matter of, it goes back to people not wanting to get involved anymore, people scared, just stand by, do nothing. But you're videotaping it, and you're laughing, and you're quick to put it on social media. So the individual who's telling me this stated that they had to call the police. And the police came. But at the end of it all, you know, I commend the police for taking action, but you're telling me that an ex-police officer as well as bystanders are laughing, videotaping, and couldn't do anything to intervene? What? There's no love or unity, boy. We're now taking joy and finding laughter and entertainment out of these fights and arguments. And then at the end of it all, if it is something happens where a life is lost, we cry and we mourn and we do. And we, you know, we act as though what happened, what transpired, when you could have intervened, you could have acted. In instances like that, I blame people in the surroundings who are laughing and videotaping for not intervening. Because if a life is lost, what you going to do? You have a responsibility and a role to play as well. But Trinidad and Tobago has gone down the pits. It's heading down that way. Sean Michael Small. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, 623-9376, 622-9338. The phone lines are open. Call in and join us on the program this morning. We have a call on the line with us from St. Joseph. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You made a comment on your show a minute ago that something was like the airport in Tobago that we don't need. I wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
On what basis is a decision taken and what steps are done to determine the construction of any port, be it air, land, or sea. Thank you very much. Let me have that feedback from you and listen out for air.
Thank you.
So with regards to, I'm not sure, I can't speak about seaports. I really have no idea because our seaports are mainly cargo. I have a background to some extent, a limited extent in tourism. Usually with regards to an airport, you're basically looking at two things. Are your facilities large enough for the traffic that you have? Do you have to expand it? Or is your building literally in need to be replaced because it's obsolete for whatever reasons? Technology with regards to the requirements for air travel might have changed, whether it's customs, whether it's how you handle baggage, loading and offloading passengers, with regards to your facilities and your layout for the number of airlines coming in. A whole host of reasons could mean that you need a new airport, especially if you have one like ours in Crown Point, which is somewhat small and not very adaptable, I could say, if for extreme changes in needs. That said, you need to have a requirement of passengers. You need to have a flow of passengers in order to justify the expenditure for a new airport, I would imagine. And right now we don't have that. Our foreign traffic of tourists is very, very small, all things considered. Relative to the rest of the Caribbean, we are almost nothing. So
I'm truly terribly sorry that I have to cut your explanation. You may continue after. Caller from St. Joseph. We're just closing out because we do have another caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller. Good morning.
I see, you don't believe me when I say crime is not a problem. The problem is law and order.
Sorry, you can repeat that, Professor?
I said the crime is the result, not the cause of the problem.
Yes.
The problem is law and order. Order is achieved by enforcing our laws, which we do not do. Which reminded me of the problem yesterday with the airport in Tobago, where I pointed out there is a law to deal with it. We talk about the title problem, and the government said they have a position on it, and they will not enforce it. Right? 2 years ago, the Attorney General announced the system to deal with it, and finally, gangs. Mr. Leasing came here and said that the gangs came from East Port of Spain and went all over Trinidad, and he's correct. What he didn't say is that the East Port of Spain redevelopment plan was to deal with that problem. And I mentioned this to you already, where all those buildings unfit for human habitation, from the C&C lots right up to the top of Rose Hill, was acquired. Compensation was paid to everybody who applied for the compensation. And the government leave the shacks there, and that is where the gangs is coming from. If you don't deal with that, you will have your problem forever. Any question? I think I have 2 seconds.
No, actually, I was going to say, one of our main arguments today is the fact that the laws aren't being enforced, because we were basically complaining that the police in some instances weren't acting as they were supposed to be acting.
We have a problem with policing in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think we need to
address it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we agree with you wholeheartedly on that point.
Thank you, Professor. Caller on the line with us from Chaguanas. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
You're live.
Hello, good morning.
You're here.
We can hear you.
Right. I am presently reading a book called The Political Man by Professor Seymour.
Mm-hmm.
And he is espousing a philosophy that when a society degenerates so badly that people lose a sense of direction and they lose self-pride and self-esteem and they have no direction to turn to, they fail to recollect the past and they lose the ability to see where they want to head in the future. And the problem with that is they dwell in the constant present. So are we in a state where we are in the constant present with the state of crime and the state of affairs in the country right now, and we seem not to be able to look towards the future?
Yeah, I could agree with that. I could generally agree with that.
The other thing that he espoused is that when budgeting is placed, a certain sum of the budget will always be used as it is directed. Say 20%. The next 80% is distributed between labor, plant and materials to keep the economy spinning. And if you take the indicators in each sector, say for example, like the 80% that is remaining, if you take steel is rising so rapidly every month. If you take labor is remaining constant. The theory that he is espousing is that it is showing how the society decay and the pressure on people to lose self-esteem and self-worth arises. So when you see a reader budget for $2 billion, rest assured there's no way that you can be guaranteed that you will stay below $2 billion.
Exactly.
It is definitely going to be $2.5 billion when the figure is read.
Thank you, caller.
Theory alone.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much. We have a caller on the line with us from Santa Cruz. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen. Let me just mute my TV.
Good morning to our dear friend. How are you?
Good morning, good morning. It's bittersweet. Praise God to be alive, but yes, being asked questions from people that live outside of Trinidad and Tobago, what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago? It's kind of difficult to admit that I'm in this beautiful country and our society in the country is in a free fall. And it's somewhat terrifying because it's almost as though the people that should be seeing this happening aren't seeing it. So I had tried to call you yesterday, and I actually wrote stuff down. So let me just read it before the minute is up and all you throw me off.
Go on.
All right. I said that the Prime Minister is caught in the fallout of this season. It's a full generation of leadership, abuse through neglect of proper services, lowering of moral standards, wastage of natural resources. And because we're all in this global micro where we can know what's going on away from ourselves in seconds, now everybody could see that the emperor is not wearing any clothes. And due to the mandate to frustrate efficiency, we're now seeing the results of frustration with the acting out of domestic violence and a sort of self-eating, we are like the king from inside out.
Yeah.
So we're in a free fall with the last straw being the lack of restraint of Kamani, a 2-year-old that I can't even begin to imagine how you could see a little child walking in the road. So trying to understand where this child lives, if he lives in a desert, if there are no houses around where this child lives, how is it that nobody could see this little child walking and nobody stops him?
Caller,
So
we share your confusion as
I am recommending
well.
our Prime Minister to call all the spiritual leaders, all of all faiths, together because our country of Trinidad and Tobago needs a spiritual rebirth. We need acknowledgement from the leadership to acknowledge what is going on, and everybody needs to do their part.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much.
Yes, we need more done, including from spiritual leaders.
That line of yours, a mandate to frustrate, it speaks volumes. You have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
I just calling to say that this perception of a village helps bring a child. That is long gone. That used to be. That you may find one or two rural areas now. You might find that still, but nowadays people study about their welfare and their security and all the sorts of things. Long time people used to be looking out through their windows and then some parents to see when children passing and all that sort of thing, or in a gallery. You see any place you could see anyone looking out through the window of the gallery these days? People are afraid.
Yeah.
And the fact is that that is what you used to get from the families helping out other families. And that doesn't exist mainly, probably as I say, that's in one of the rural areas. But in the areas like in Port of Spain and all the cities and so on, we ain't having that again because people are fearful for their lives.
Yeah.
And it's a total breakdown in this country. And this country is very difficult to bring back to reality because the people on top, they just want to remain there and they will do whatever it is to remain there. And that's that state of affairs. It's very difficult, hard, very hard.
Yes, sir.
Well, good morning and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
caller. Good hearing from you and keep well.
Yes, I thought that same thing, caller.
It speaks
Whatever
to
they
me
can to stay in charge.
about. That's just too obvious at this point. We have too many washed out, thrown out politicians that honestly need to. If they're raising the retirement age to 65, they should lower the retirement age for politicians. Honestly, some of these politicians just need to understand that.
No, I think they should limit terms.
You know, just
they should limit terms.
You know,
if you've been Prime Minister for 2 terms and you've been in Parliament for another term or 2 on top of that, you should be done.
If you limit a president's term, should you limit the Prime Minister's term? And I say Prime Minister, and I go down to cabinet members as well. Should you limit an individual's term to only 2 years? Because I can't really think of anywhere else where cabinet members
it could be a pyramid where Prime Minister has more limitations than a cabinet minister, right? But one of the reasons, listen, at the end of the day, there has to be a life after whichever politician anyway. Think of your favorite world leader, right? Whoever he may be, there has to be a life after him anyway. And the benefits of having the red gem be there in hopeful perpetuity, but in reality just a few years longer, is not worth it to have, well, the sour grapes and the sour apples and the dried up raisins and whatever else continue to be sitting in office, more concerned about keeping power than actually being concerned about doing what the country needs. Those are not always the same thing.
Thank you very much to all our callers for their contribution this morning. A mandate to frustrate. We have about 3 minutes left, and I just want to thank everybody for being on point in their contributions and being very straightforward with us, but also in a timely fashion. We do apologize for everybody who tried to come on the program this morning and the opportunity. Tomorrow you can call in again. But Sean, I don't know if you would like to continue addressing the question posed to you by the caller from St. Joseph.
Well, for the most part, that is more or less it. I think at the end of the day, there could be other considerations for an airport, but I believe it is for the facilities. Could it handle the load? And does it have the technology and the logistical capabilities to meet with new innovations and new processes? You could argue that maybe we have an issue with the second point, but that potentially could be done with upgrading the existing airport, because I don't think we are anywhere near at capacity, because we don't have the amount of tourists coming in. And the domestic terminal is technically a separate matter. What I do want to say is, I just want to reiterate again, there was a lot with regards to what the government was doing wrong. And unfortunately, in times like this, we're not going to have much to say about the opposition. Yes, we could say the opposition might not be doing their job very well, but that's more or less it. And we've already said things like that. The government is in charge now. That's why they are the government. So whoever sits in the seat, heavy is the head that wears the crown. The responsibility is great. They're the ones that's going to get the criticism for when things go wrong actively. With that said, we still need to remember to be our brother's keeper. And that means that if you wear Balize or you wear Rising Sun and you see someone in distress that wears the other party's symbol, you help them. You do whatever you need to do to make sure that they're okay. You give them a hand, you raise them up. By raising them up, you raise us all up. Because if you just want to vilify the other side, that is not bringing the country together.
Sean, I am sorry. I must...
That is not bringing the country together.
I must respectfully, not disagree with what you're saying or decline. I disagree in the sense that why let your political opinion even divide us?
Well, that's the point.
No, the whole thing is that forget at the moment, in that message that you said, forget about whether or not you're red, you're yellow, you're green, you're blue, you're whatever. Forget about it.
People don't want to forget it. I'm saying that if you can't forget about it, you have to push past it.
Preaching the message that regardless of your political choice, your political affiliation, whatever it may be, remember one thing. You have an opportunity to vote, you go ahead and vote. If you want to campaign, you go ahead and campaign. But at the end of it all, You are Trinbagonian. This is my brother. My sister from Santa Cruz. My brother from Diego Martin. And my sister who called in from San Fernando yesterday. My sister who called. We are Trinbagonians. At the end of it all, I don't care if you're Balize or you're Rising Sun or you're Flambeau or you're Lighthouse. I don't care. I will look out for you, and I hope that you look out for me. We'll see you again tomorrow morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.